We have the most befitting academician as the resource person for the day, Dr. P. Krishnakumar, a noted pediatrician and a nationally acclaimed pediatric psychiatrist. Post MBBS, Krishnakumar sir did his DCH and PhD in pediatrics and MD in psychiatry. He was additional professor in pediatrics at Government Medical College, Kozhikode. He is also the member Board of Studies Rehabilitation Sciences, Kerala University of Health Sciences, KUHAS, and member faculty group KUHAS. He has also held various positions in Indian Academy of Pediatrics. He has dozens of publications in indexed journals to his credit. He is an astute researcher and has guided many PhD students. As the director of finance, he has taken early intervention sector of Kerala to the next level. He has a substantial number of innovative concepts in the country based in the community-based disability management to his credit. I had the good fortune to work under him in Immense and to be part of the community mental health program even before the concept was incorporated in the national mental health program. And the model served as the model for the district mental health DMHP in the country. The list of his accomplishments is so enormous that it will consume a substantial portion of our webinar time, and hence I am not daring to do that. With all due respect, sir, I welcome you, sir, for this session. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Roshan, for the nice words. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Okay. So you please present the slides then.
Sure, sir. Just a minute, sir. Okay, so please carry on, sir.
Okay. So at the outset, I thank Dr. Roshan Bijli, the CRC authorities, for giving me this opportunity to talk on neurodevelopmental disorders in children. What I try to do here is to give an overview of neurodevelopmental disorders. Most of you will be familiar with these concepts. So it's more like a refreshment of the topic. Next slide. So if you see the burden of disability, it is a huge burden. According to WHO, 85% of disability burden are in developing countries. In India, 2011 census, around 1 crore people, children below 19 years, were suffering from various type of disability. Next slide. And if you see the prevalence of neurodevelopmental disorders in children below 9 years, 10 to 18% of children, that is an all India based study. In Kerala, they have done a survey and found that below 5 years, around 3.54% of children suffer from neurodevelopmental disorders. See, I have used two terms in the previous slide. I was talking about developmental disability. Now I'm talking about neurodevelopmental disorders. So these two are different concepts. Next slide. If you see that, you all will be familiar with these three concepts. Impairment refers to deformity, a problem in organ level. Disability means because of that impairment, you are not able to do some activity. So that is in the person level. And handicap refers because of your disability, you are not able to function properly in the society. You cannot do a particular job. For example, you got cataract. So that is an impairment. Because of cataract, you are not able to see. That is a disability. And because you are not able to see, you are not able to perform some activity in the society, particular job. That is a handicap. So the whole concept, the whole idea of disability management is early identification and treatment of impairment so that disability is reduced so that the person can function normally in the society. Next. So this is where we come to the concept of disorder and disability. Disorder is an evolving thing. Disability means something which has already occurred. That is why we talk about neurodevelopmental disorders, which can lead to disability. So usually these two terms are used interchangeably, but it is not exactly correct. Both are different. Next. So if you see the impact of disability, it affects family, caregivers, parents of children, society as such, and physical, psychological, social, economic impact. Next slide. Next slide. So according to DSM-5, these are common neurodevelopmental disorders. Intellectual disability, the actual name is intellectual developmental disorder. Then autism spectrum disorders, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, specific learning disorder, communication disorder, and motor disorders. So these are the common neurodevelopmental disorders. Next. How do these children present? So usual presentation of neurodevelopmental disorders is, one is most common is developmental delay. Last class, Dr. Ashraf might have stressed the importance of identification of developmental delay early. That is following up of developmental milestones. So that is the usual presentation. The other one is a deviant behavior pattern. The child behaves so-called deviant from the normal pattern of behavior we see in autism or attention deficit disorders and all. So that is the behavior abnormality may be the first seeking attention. Next slide. So usually neurodevelopmental disorders require a multidisciplinary team because many disorders can coexist. Previously among the neurodevelopmental disorders, I didn't mention cerebral palsy because cerebral palsy is a static structural defect in the brain causing problem. A child with cerebral palsy can have ADHD, can have intellectual disability, can have autistic behavior, speech defect. So multiple defects can coexist, especially in younger age group, before the age of 5 years, 6 years. A child can have both ASD and ADHD. ASD, ADHD plus intellectual disability. So many times they require support from a multidisciplinary team. The picture we see the child development clinic, which we started in IMCH in before 2000. It was a single man clinic. Then we had with some remedial therapists, we started a small center in the medical college, and later on we developed into the present day EMHANS with now we have all these specialist remedial therapists at our center. So most often we require a multidisciplinary team, and the importance of this is many of these professionals are lacking, not adequate in India. For example, occupational therapist, very rare specimen, clinical psychologist. So most of the time, especially in rural areas, we don't get specialists or remedial therapy professionals. Next. Now coming to intellectual disability or intellectual developmental disorder, you all know it is below average intellectual functioning. That is what we do, but we identify by checking the intelligence quotient. Along with that, there should be impaired social adaptive functioning, with onset during the developmental period. That is what we call intellectual disability. So all these three criteria should be satisfied. If the child has below average intelligence, but child is having normal social functioning, then you cannot label the child as intellectually disabled. Similarly, if the intelligence IQ test is below, or if the intelligence is below average and the adaptive functions are normal, you cannot label the child as intellectually disabled. Vice versa also. If the adaptive functions are impaired, for example, a person with motor neuron disease or a cerebral diplegia where intelligence can be normal, but because of the motor defect, the person is not able to do adaptive functions properly, then you cannot consider as intellectual disability. So intelligence we assess using standardized tests. Adaptive functions refers to skills for day-to-day functioning. For example, a 1-year-old child should be able to talk 2 words, should be able to stand or stand without support, take few steps without support. So that is what we mean by skills, self-help skills or personal skills for day-to-day functioning. If the skills are impaired, you can say adaptive functions are impaired. But in a 1-year-old child, you are not able to do an IQ test. So you cannot say the child is having intellectual disability. Most of the time, we are able to do IQ test after the age of 3 years or 4 years. Next slide, next. So you all know mental age by chronological age into 100. Malin's intelligence scale or Binet-Karma test are the usual tests for IQ assessment. For adaptive functions, to assess age-appropriate skills, we usually use Vineland Social Maturity Scale. Next. Now, a child with intellectual disability, the most important thing is early identification. You assess the functional level of the child. For example, a 10-year-old child, the mother says he functions like a 5-year-old child. Then his IQ is probably 5 by 10 into 150. So if he functions like a 5-year-old child, you train him like a 5-year-old child so that adaptive functions are improved, and avoid labeling as intellectually disabled or mentally retarded. Make the parent aware of the problem, and our aim is to help the child to attain independent living, mainstreaming. So any child with developmental delay or you suspect intellectual disability, our aim of all our program therapy training is to make the child independent. So you should talk to the parents about the importance of this aspect. Don't create dependency. Age appropriate, the child should be trained, enabled to perform age appropriate functions independently. Next slide. And when you talk to the parents also, it is always better to avoid stigmatizing terms like your child is having autism, your child is having a mental retardation. So a better way is your child is 10-year-old, but he functions like a 5-year-old child. So the child should be taught, trained like a 5-year-old child. That will be less stigmatizing. And you discuss the associated problems, if there is anything, hearing, vision, and discuss about treatment options, skills training, schooling. That will be parents' doubt, whether the child should be sent to specialist school, whether the child can be taught in the normal school. So usually in our setup, if there is severe intellectual disability or moderate to severe intellectual disability, it is ideal or better to have some special training during the early years. And when the child develops age-appropriate skills, choose normal, so-called normal or typical schools. And nowadays, what usually happens is the early years they are sent to the or normal usual schools, and after 8, 9, or 10 years, special school training is given. So most of the time, the training will not be effective then. So if the special school training is planned, it is always better to start early training so that by the age of 8 or 9 years, the child can be sent to normal school. Next slide. The next very common thing is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is a neurodevelopmental disorder. The prevalence is around 10% in our child guidance clinic. Next slide. Next, so these are the three key features: hyperactivity, impulsivity, and inattention. We'll see some cases and see how this present. Next. So this is a 4-year-old girl, always restless, never sits quiet, running around in the class, disturbs other children, cannot sustain attention, cannot obey classroom rules. So that is attention problem and hyperactivity. Impulsive, does whatever she feels to do with at the moment. Easy quarrel with others. Very emotional, develop temper tantrums. That is the last part refers to impulsivity. So this is a classical presentation of a ADHD in under 5 age group. So hyperactivity is the predominant complaint. Restless, as if driven by a motor, cannot sit quiet, running around. Next slide. So as the child becomes older, memory problems becomes important. Parents started complaining of he forgets easily, labeled as lazy, not interested in studies, he fails in all subjects. So these are all concentration problems. So no memory means the child is not concentrating, cannot do anything properly, easily distracted. That also is attention problem, restless. So that hyperactivity, instead of running around, became fidgety behavior, restless, cannot quite sit quiet for some time. Frequent eye blinking refers to motor tics, which is very common in these children with ADHD. Most of the time, these tics are benign conditions. They may appear sometime, especially when the child has emotional disturbance and all, and disappear. Most of the tics are benign tics or transient tics disorder. Next. So a bit more older child, boy, 10th years. So here again, academic problem became major problems. Not good in studies, fail in most subjects, and because he cannot play properly, so there are no friends. You might have remembered the child in Tare Zameen Par movie. So while playing cricket, he's beating others, breaking glasses and all, picks up quarrel easily. So the hyperactivity has come down, like impulsivity, hyperactivity is now this type of behavior. And he's beaten up by teachers for disturbing other children. Gradually, the child refuses to go to school. Complaints of aches and pains, we call it as conversion disorder. Wakes up at night and cries. The last part refers to features of depression, bedwetting, moody, crying without reason. So these are all comorbid conditions of ADHD. So because of concentration problem, child is not able to study properly, cannot play properly, no friends, be punished by teachers, punished by parents. So school refusal is very common in these children. Aches and pains, conversion disorder, depression. Next slide. Next. An older child, 13 years. So he's intelligent. ADHD children, they can have normal intelligence, they can have above normal intelligence, they can have below normal intelligence. So intelligence doesn't come into the picture of ADHD. So here, this child is intelligence, get above average marks, but he cannot sit quietly. He cannot sit and study, restless, fidgety. So parents usually say if he uh, take more interest, he will get more marks. His hands can never be quiet. He's interested in mechanical works. Many of the ADHD children, they are interested in mechanical work. And he doesn't obey, talk back, emotional, unpredictable behavior, telling lies, stealing money. So the last part refers to conduct disorder. So conduct disorder is a comorbidity of ADHD. In fact, a significant children with conduct disorder, there is a group called hyperkinetic conduct disorder, where the conduct symptoms like lying, stealing, delinquent behavior, they start early during childhood, along with the ADHD. So it is more a problem than ADHD. So early identification of these type of problems and initiation of behavior management is important. Next. Next slide. Hello, next. So if you non-pharmacological treatment of ADHD, there are tasks which can improve attention span, like something which you do with intense concentration, fix a time for study, fix a place for minimum distraction. So you can gradually increase the attention span, like tasks like painting, connecting the dot, or pouring water from a narrow neck bottle to another bottle. So activities which require intense concentration. So the principle behind is, if you do this type of activities, your brain, the neurons become tuned or active in this type of, or the concentrating capacity of the neurons will increase. Next slide. And always discuss with family members about the problems, discuss with teachers how the child should be given attention in the class, and the child also should not be blamed. Teach him self-esteem, self-control, identify the positive qualities, social skills training will help. So here again, we start identify the problem early. You can ADHD, you can suspect when the child is 2 years or 3 years. And we can advise parents regarding this type of behavior interventions. Next slide. And actually, this behavior therapy principles are important not only for ADHD, but for all other children, even children without any problems. You always pay attention when the child does anything good. And up to a limit, you ignore the bad behavior. Limit setting is something which you should teach all children, adolescents. The child can have demands, but there are limits. So for everything, for spending money, for watching television, or other type of behavior, up to a limit, if the behavior is not causing any problem, you allow the behavior. But there should be definite limits. Time out where you separate the child from an active place to a dull place with no toys, nothing to play with. Avoid comparing, like the other child is much better, you cannot control your behavior like that. And discrete use of rewards, behavior chart. Next slide. Now the next common disorder, which is increasing like anything, the recent prevalence, reported prevalence of autism is 1% or even less. In some Western studies report 1 in 50 children having autistic features. The three problems are impairment in communication, impairment in reciprocal social interaction. Along with that, repetitive stereotype behavior with onset during the developmental period, that is before 3 years or 4 years, in the early developmental period. So we see a child how they present. Next slide. So this is a 2-year-old boy presented to our clinic. So the complaints are speech delay. Along with that, odd behavior. The child is not looking at your face. Inadequate social interaction. Motor milestones are normal. Hearing and vision normal. So this is the usual presentation of a child with ASD, autism spectrum disorder. There is a delay speech and odd behavior. Usually by 1 year or 9 months to 1 year, the child should have reciprocal social interaction, should be able to say tata, bye bye, looking at your face, smiling at you, play hide and seek, peekaboo, imitating the other's behavior, pointing something and indicating that I want. That is a non-verbal communication. So if the child doesn't have these type of behavior, interaction by the age of 1 year, 1.5 years, you should suspect autism. Along with that, delayed speech. So delayed speech plus this type of behavior. And usually motor milestones are normal. And any child coming with speech delay, the first thing to do is you look for hearing and vision. And once hearing, vision are normal, then you see whether there is any delay in motor milestones. Then you see how the child interacts with others, whether there is a child is looking at your face, interacting with you, smiling at you. If this is not there, you cannot label the child as having autism, but you can suspect problems. Next slide. So when 4 years, he was in play school, the complaints are he doesn't mix with other children, prefers to be left alone, prefers inanimate objects, doesn't make eye-to-eye contact, sits as if in a world of his own. So that is the usual description. An autistic child behaves as if he is in a world of his own. Goes on doing the same things for hours. They talk about insistence on sameness. That is what Kanner said in 1943. The child go on repeating the same things. Along with that stereotype hand movements, repetitive movements like rocking movement, fingers moving in a particular way, and limited language. That is a 4-year-old Suji. Now, these are all classical features of autism in the children below 5 years. Next slide. Next. So at the age of 10 years, he is studying in our school for children with special needs. He has limited vocabulary. He's able to communicate for his daily needs like food, water, drink, like that. But he doesn't interact with others at all. The mother says he's intelligent, he understands what others are talking, but he won't interact or communicate. Here again, intelligence is something which actually evolves. A child with normal intelligence, if the child is not interacting with others, child is keeping aloof, naturally the intelligence will not develop. For intelligence to develop, the child should have normal interaction with the environment. That is how the child develops vocabulary, social skills, etc. So in an autistic child, even when to begin with, child is intelligent, later on all the becomes, if proper training is not given, it becomes more difficult. Constipation is very common in many children with autism, and also they have food fadism. They like special type of food. Sleep disturbance are very common. Usually unusual response. Sometimes they don't like some color, red color. If they see the color, they become violent, develop temper tantrums. Usually they are staying in a roadside. So whenever a heavy vehicle pass through the road making sound, he doesn't like sound. So he put newspaper bits in the ear. So every month they will to consult an ENT surgeon to remove the foreign body. Next. And there are a lot of misconceptions about autism, that they are all very intelligent people, they are extraordinary, have extraordinary abilities. But it is not like that. Majority children have, along with ASD, intellectual disability also. Only 20% have a normal range of non-verbal IQ. Next slide. But there are islets of ability sometimes. They talk about splinter functions. Even if the child is not able to talk properly, they can sing very well. Or you might have seen in the TV an autistic child singing, or autistic child able to paint, draw pictures. Some have very good rote memory and able to do calendar calculations, etc. Physical abilities. So the theory is that some areas of brain functions normally or in a much better way, but some other areas are not functioning properly. So there is no coordinated functioning of different areas of brain. Next slide. And you see that a growing brain, developing brain, is in a dynamic interaction with environment. So if the child is not able to interact with others, child is left alone, that is what we call psychosocial deprivation, or spending time in front of TV full time, not interacting with others. So all this can lead to autistic-like behavior. So you cannot separate. That is why usually we say you can't separate during the early developmental period, separate the brain from the environment. So environmental changes, environmental stimulation can bring about structural changes in the brains. The neuronal connections can improve, vice versa also. Kanner in 1943 talked about mechanized parenting causing emotional refrigeration in the child, and that is the cause of it. But this is not the cause of autism. Autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder where there is definite biological causes. But environmental factors can influence significantly in the developing the behavior. For example, last year, one of our PG students did a thesis on screen time in children with autism. And he found that children with autism spectrum disorders are exposed to TV, digital media much earlier than normal control. And they spend less time with quality time with the parents compared to normal children. But this need not be an etiological factor, because autistic children, they like to be left alone. So they may not be spending time with parents. They may be spending more time with the TV and all. So it can be an effect also. Next slide. And one thing which all should know is before 5 years, it is very difficult to make a definite diagnosis of ASD. Children with ASD can have hyperactivity also. So ASD and ADHD can coexist. ASD can occur in a child with cerebral palsy or along with hypothyroidism or genetic syndromes like tuberous sclerosis or Down syndrome. So multiple disorders can coexist in the younger age group. So only after 5 years or 6 years, you should be able to make a definite diagnosis of ASD. But you can suspect problem when the child is 1 year or even before and start remedial therapy. That is very important. And ASD and ADHD, the difference is ADHD, the child will be able to interact with the surroundings. So we say he or she will be in touch with surroundings. Whereas in a child with ASD, child behaves as if in a world of his own, not in touch with surroundings. So that is the core difference between ASD and ADHD in a child below 5 years. Next slide. Now coming to the other major neurodevelopmental disorder is specific learning disorder. So the term for scholastic backwardness can be due to different causes: family problems, school problems, school syllabus. Child is not able to adjust with school syllabus. Child can have intellectual disability, can have borderline intelligence, psychological problems like anxiety, depression, etc. can cause scholastic backwardness. Chronic physical illness like epilepsy, asthma, and the interest of the child may be different. A child may be interested in working in the field, not in studies. So all these can cause scholastic backwardness. But these are not learning disorder. Next. So learning disorder actually is a discrepancy between intelligence and academic performance. Child is intelligent, child gets support from family, support from school, no psychological or developmental disorder like ADHD or autism to attribute for learning problems. Physical illness, etc. are well controlled. Child is motivated to study. Still the child is not able to learn. That is what they call specific learning disorder. So it is a neurodevelopmental disorder. And there are definite areas in the brain where impaired functioning occur, like for example in the temporal lobe, in the angular gyrus, some brain areas are not functioning properly. So the processing of language, they are not able to do. That result in dyslexia, that is developmental disability in reading. That is dyslexia, or a writing problem like dysgraphia, which is a developmental disability in writing, or problems in mathematics, which is developmental disability called dyscalculia. Here again, usually before the age of 8 years, you are not able to diagnose specific learning disorder because it needs you have to prove that there is a discrepancy between intelligence and academic performance. The academic performance is 2 classes below the class in which the child is studying. That is the usual definition. So usually diagnose. Here again, you can suspect problem much earlier, but give a definite diagnosis after the primary classes. Next slide. So you see that this is in Malayalam. So he is able to calculate properly, 15 plus 31. That means he has normal intelligence, 5th standard. But he cannot write properly. So that is a dysgraphia. And you see the small letters in English. History of speech relay attended CDS at the age of 3 years. Next slide. So this usually happens. Most of the time, a child with learning disorder, the problems manifest much earlier. with delayed speech, problems in language. So what I usually say is early intervention for scholastic backwardness or learning disorder should start much earlier, much before the school age group, 2 year or even before. Here you see the Arun came to our clinic with speech delay, motor milestones normal. He can understand commands, reciprocal social interaction normal. That means no autistic features, hearing, vision normal. So we made a diagnosis of specific language impairment. And at the age of 6 years, studying in first standard, he came with scholastic backwardness, reduced communication with peers, language problems, normal intelligence, attends remedial training. So this is the usual history in a child with learning problems. Specific learning disorder, to diagnose learning disorder, you have to do IQ test, LD assessment and all. But you can suspect problem when the child has this type of presentation, learning problems with history of speech delay, communication problems, etc. Now, so from this we go to communication disorders. DSM-5 include this 5 groups: language disorder, speech sound disorder. Speech sound disorder is previously called as dysarthria. Childhood onset fluency disorder, stammering. Language disorder, previously used to say specific language impairment, where motor milestones are normal, but language is impaired. Social communication disorder is a new entity. We'll come to that later. Next. So language disorder can be an expressive language disorder where reception child is able to understand properly, but child is not able to express language. So expressive speech is impaired. But here the motor milestones are normal. Most of the time the parents say he understands what is spoken, but he cannot talk back. And when there is mixed receptive expressive language disorder, child is not able to understand spoken words also. So in the second type, usually chance of developing intellectual disability is higher. Next. The specific language impairment is spoken language lags behind other areas development. No features of ASD or intellectual disability. Hearing, vision normal. 3 to 10% of school children. Next slide. Now coming to social communication disorder, you suspect this was previously a differential diagnosis of autism. So you feel the child has some autistic features. Communication alone is impaired. Communication for social purposes. So in a group, the child is not able to communicate. Once you start talking, you cannot change the topic. You don't understand if not explicitly stated. That is literal meaning. But no other features of ASD, global development delay, or intellectual disability. Next. So in this condition, language alone is delayed. In autism, along with language delay, there is the behavior abnormality, reciprocal, non-verbal communication is impaired, child is not looking at your face, etc. Along with the stereotype behavior also. That repetitive stereotype behavior is not seen in social communication disorder. Intelligence is normal. Initially parents may think that child is shy, introvert, not interacting. But usually when the child starts entering school, the problem becomes manifest. We see a lot of children like this. So these children require speech therapy, social skills training, group therapy, etc. Next slide. Now, language learning disorder. So most of the time, the early identification of many developmental disorders is through identifying language delay, especially learning disorders and all. So you talk about language learning disorder as a continuum. So children learn language by exploration of the environment, they interact with others, see what is happening in the surroundings. So initially they understand, that is receptive language, comprehension of words, phrases, sentences. So they understand what you are talking. You understand if you tell a story, or you understand if you tell something. That is comprehension that comes, or receptive language comes initially. Next is, and then expressive language. So by interacting with the surrounding, child is able to understand what is happening in the surrounding. So receptive language, then expressive language. Started talking single words, phrases, sentences, and telling stories. So it's a gradual, continuous process. So after the expressive language comes reading. Initially words, then sentences, stories, chapter, books, etc. General topics and specific topics. So after reading comes spelling, then writing. So it is a, so initially reception, then expression, then reading, spelling, writing. So it is a continuous ongoing process where your brain, by the child's brain interacting with the environment, acquires new skills. Next slide. So that is why if you start intervention, or if you're planning intervention for delayed or learning problems, behavior problems, all these things we need to start earlier. So because developing brain is a in dynamic interact with the environment. The brain develops depending upon what type of stimulation reaches the brain. Usually we say healthy choices means healthy brain. Unhealthy choices means unhealthy brain. Even if the brain structure is normal, brain physiology is normal, if it is not used properly, the functions are not optimum. It's just like a knife, a metal knife. If you keep aloof, idle, not doing anything, it becomes rusted. Only if it is used properly, it becomes sharp. So what part of the brain you use, that part of the brain becomes more active. That is why if the child spends time in front of a TV, video game, etc., or if start smoking during the adolescence, or taking liquor, using substances during the adolescent period, those part of the brain becomes active. We talk about neuronal plasticity. The neurons can modify, form new connections, and develop. But by the age of adolescence, late adolescence, the myelination of brain becomes completed. When myelination is complete, then the plasticity disappears or become decreased. That is why intervention should be start earlier at the age of 1 year or even before. Next slide. And as I already mentioned, we need different professionals. Next slide. Next. So Dr. Ocean was talking about newborn screening programs, identification of hypothyroidism, treatable conditions, or genetic syndromes during the fetal life itself. And so that is the primary prevention thing. Then next thing is early identification of the problem. Then during the early developmental period, you provide sensory motor stimulation, quality environment, parents spending quality time with the child, making the child see things, colors, music, voices. That is sensory motor stimulation activities. And if there is any defect, specific remedial therapy. So all these things should start at the age of 1 year or even before, and you continue. Next. And in the preschool period, you need a child with the developmental problems, need a center where he or she can get special attention, special play school or whatever it is, where promotion of speech and language, get services of speech therapists, special educators, facility for social skills training, communication skills training, motor skills training. So with support from different professionals like physiotherapists or speech therapists, special educators. Then at the age of 6 years, you assess the child, next slide, and see whether the child can be needs additional support in a special training center, or the child can be sent to normal school with appropriate support. And you provide self-help skills, communication skills, social skills, all these skills training, care for learning disorders, behavior management for ADHD children. So the school should have all these facilities. So we start from early 1 year or so, initiation of sensory motor stimulation, remedial therapy, a school with facility for remedial therapy in the preschool period, then a school with all these facilities. It is a theoretical question whether it is a normal school or so-called special school. So if it is a normal school, you can get all these facilities, then that is better. But nowadays in most schools it is not available. That's the problem. Next. And next slide. Next. And by the time that the child reaches adolescence, you start vocational training, take care of adolescent needs, and sometimes they case services in severe problems. And as far as possible, provide vocational training and make the child independent, the adolescent or boy, when they become older adult, help them to have an independent life. So that is the life cycle approach of dealing with disability. So prevention of disability, early identification and initiation of remedial therapy, a play school with all these remedial therapy facilities before 6 years, after 6 years, schooling with all these facility support, and later on, vocational training, rehabilitation of those who require additional support. So this is in a nutshell an overview of neurodevelopmental disorders and what we should do regarding neurodevelopmental disorders. So thank you for your attention. Now, if anybody have any questions, doubts, clarifications, we can have a few more minutes.
If anybody have any doubts, please ask, or otherwise you can post on our chat box.
Sir, my name is Chiranjeevi. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah. Sir, what are the early intervention therapies or strategies for children with autism spectrum disorder?
So if you see the, you mean about the centers or treatment strategies available?
Yes, sir. Treatment strategies available.
If you look at the literature, different centers have different treatment strategies for autism, because autism is so common now, and many centers have their own treatment procedures and all. And when there are many strategies, that means these things are not successful. If you search literature, you see different types of therapy. For example, India, in Bangalore, Dr. Pratibha Karand decided a program called COM Deal program, where the communication deal program, that is an Indian program for children with autism. Their experience is there is good success improvement by this program. Then there are a lot of programs like applied behavior analysis is another which is very popular in USA and all. What we do in our center is you give services of speech therapist, occupational therapist, play therapy services, and you train parents regarding spending quality time with the child, promoting social interaction and all, group interventions.
We have like complementary and alternative therapies, like yoga therapy is there, art therapy is there, and
I don't know. I'm not aware of. I don't know that I have heard about, but I'm not aware of the success. If you see literature, Cochrane review. Yesterday we had collected the data from Cochrane database. So what they say is music therapy has some success. The other therapies and all almost equal. Yoga and all recently has come up. We don't know. There are no scientific literature evidence of these things.
art therapy, sir.
That is art, music therapy.
Yeah, correct.
Because even I had a child. He passed SSLC last year. He is able to sing very well, and we trained him under a musician in Hindustani music and classical Carnatic music, and that improved his communication skills, and he now perform Hindustani music concerts just like a professional. But there are people like that. So that type of therapy, that depends. There is a child who is interested in painting. So if you encourage the capacity, ability to paint, so usually in disability or differential ability, if you identify a particular skill and you encourage that skill, the child develop confidence, and that will help to improve the overall functioning of the child. And regarding therapy, what they say is 25 hours a week intensive therapies, applied behavior analysis, all these things, there is improvement. That is what literature says. And there again, there is a lot of other, because autism is not a single entity. In a child with autism, the cause will be different in another child. So the therapies in one child need not be effective in another child.
Yes, sir. So one question on ADHD. So one of the prime reasons for ADHD is metal poisoning in food. Metal poisoning, sir, like lead and nickel or chromium, something like
that. Actually, autism and mercury poisoning, there is a relationship. Lead poisoning can cause autism-like features. Similarly, lead poisoning can cause anemia. Anemia can cause hyperactivity, attention problems. So lead poisoning can lead to hyperactivity, attention problems. But it doesn't mean that in all children, the cause of ADHD is lead poisoning. Now it is known that cause of ADHD is abnormality in epinephrine, norepinephrine neurotransmitter system.
And also, Yeah, and also if we take stimulants in food for children with ADHD, that will increase that hyperactivity, right, sir?
Stimulant drugs usually.
No, not drugs. Foods like glucose.
Okay, okay, okay.
There are some
So
foods which will spike.
sometimes usually what we are doing is you avoid food preservatives. You take omega-3 fatty acids
Yes.
in excess, so that will improve brain functioning. Some preservatives can have increased hyperactivity. For
Yes.
example, Coca-Cola.
Yes, sir.
My son, when he was very young, if you take Coca-Cola, he'll be very restless that
Yeah,
day.
it
So
will
that
shoot
is
up the glucose level in blood.
okay. But it doesn't mean that these are all cause of ADHD. So ADHD is some the neurotransmitter changes. So these type of food stuffs items or preservatives can bring changes in the neurotransmitter level. So better to avoid.
Yes, sir. So we need to be very careful with the dietary requirement, dietary options for the children, because so we need to cut down whatever is causing that stimulant like hyperactive behavior.
Yeah.
Because children are very rigid in as far as food is concerned. As far as I know, for children with ASD, so they are very choosy about their food. So they don't like all the food items. They will select only some items. So we need to be very careful with what we are offering, because it could cause that hyperactivity, or it could cause
Actually, for ASD children, food faddism is very common. They like only particular type of items that also should be arranged but cooked in particular way.
Yes, sir.
That is, they like structured environment. Everything should be the same pattern, structured. So food also is a part of that.
But the diet should be balanced, sir. Otherwise,
It should be balanced. So it's very difficult, even
Yeah.
though theoretically we say, especially in small children, it will be very difficult.
Yes, sir. That's it, sir.
Okay, Binoy,
One query is in chat box, sir. Sir, the question is, what is your opinion on early screening at 18 months? 11.1 universal screening to identify at risk age. That is a question from Binoy Matthew.
Actually, early screening, the prevalence of ASD now is 1 in 50 or so, especially in USA. So they advise universal screening at the age of 18 months. All children, they come for a second booster, the first booster immunization clinic should be screened for ASD. In our setup, it may not be possible. There will be practical difficulties. So at least we should be able to screen high-risk babies. High-risk babies are, last class, Dr. Ashraf might have mentioned about the high-risk baby screening and all. So ideally universal screening, because if the prevalence of a disorder is 1 in 1% means it's very high prevalence. So universal screening should be there, but practical difficulties will be there.
Sir, another question. So what is your opinion on the microbiome modifications and probiotics in ASD management?
Actually, there are no scientifically proved evidence for probiotics or modification of microbiome. But there are anecdotal evidences, and there are some studies which have shown that probiotics will improve gut functioning, but these are not proved. Similarly, people who argue that you give antibiotic in the newborn period, that can cause changes in the gut microbiome, and that is causing problems. These are not proved things.
Sir, one clarification. I think there is a direct connection between the gut and the brain, right? As far as microbiome is concerned, like there are many diverse bacteria present in the gut. So, and one of the neurotransmitter like serotonin is produced in the gut, right? So, like, there is some connection between the what we eat and how we behave. May not be 100%, but there is some connection. It means the food we take, decides our behavior to some extent.
Okay. Gut, there is what they say is just like our CNS, central nervous system, there is a gut neuronal system.
Yes.
And abnormalities, because you see this, they develop from both same germ layers, and this gut nervous system abnormality is the cause of constipation and all in children with ASD. You see, majority of children with autism got constipation. So all these are linked. Actually, the message is you cannot separate. That is what I always say. You cannot separate your mind, brain, body. All these are interconnected. There is a cutaneous nervous system. What they say is that the cutaneous nervous system has a role in developing empathy, mirror neuron functions, and all. But these are all theories.
Okay, sir. One more question. That is, what is your views on transdisciplinary team, and what is the protocol for it?
What is transdisciplinary team means? Multidisciplinary.
Multidisciplinary team only, I think.
Transdisciplinary means different disciplines. That is what I was telling, that because autism has multiple problems, so we need support from professionals from different field. Protocol for it, I'm not aware of any separate protocol. Maybe in the Western countries they might have defined role for this.
Okay, sir. One more question in the chat box. That is, there is always a doubt in parents' mind that when to start early intervention.
So actually, how early means there is no definite cutoff point. So early intervention actually start from when the baby is in the mother's womb. A very interesting finding, which I was talking about our PG thesis. He found that in children, he compared 100 children with autism and 100 age-matched normal control children. He found that in children with autism, along with other parents spending less time with children, early exposure to TV, along with that, he found that mothers of children with autism had suffered much more stress during antenatal period compared to mothers of children with normal behavior. So stress during antenatal period contributes to development of problems. That is what his conclusion. And nutrition, that is why now we say you start with adolescence. For a better tomorrow, better childhood, you concentrate on adolescent girls. You improve physical health of adolescents, correct anemia and all, improve mental health of adolescents, and proper antenatal care, proper natal care, proper postnatal care, and you do follow-up of developmental milestones. If there is any problem in the milestones, in the behavior, you start appropriate intervention. So diagnostic label may be delayed 4 years, 5 years, but you can suspect problem earlier, much earlier. For example, the baby should start develop social smile by 2 months. So by 2 months, if the baby is not developing social smile, that means there is some problem. That may not be problem, but there is, the baby may develop problems. So the mother should start interacting, spend more quality time with the child. So that means you start intervention early.
Thank you, sir. Regarding this, for the same, as I asked, there is a doubt in the parents' mind residing in the remote areas. They are saying there are sometimes a late warning sign in the children. They don't know when to go and where to go for all these intervention programs. No?
Actually, it is not in the remote areas, even in Calicut, in a corporation city, and Kerala, where 99% are educated. Last week, I had a 6-year-old child coming with severe autistic features. So, educated parents, father a software engineer, mother after a PG degree and all. They thought that usually the thing is the grandmother, the grandparents will say somebody in the family had a delayed speech, so it's familial. So child will improve by the age of 6 years. So most of the time they say by the time child starts going to school, child will improve. So
Okay.
that's a lot of misconceptions. And one thing is that is something which I should stress. If you label a child with intellectual disability or autism or ADHD, that create problems. So don't label the child. So you can start intervention even without labeling by 1 year or before 1 year and all. So
Okay.
that the parents will accept it. Only if you say that your child is having autism, then they will say no. My uncle's son also started delay speech, but he is now a doctor.
Yeah.
So that will be there. So it's better to have. That is why I was telling that when you talk about intellectual disability, you can say your son is 10-year-old, but he functions like a 5-year-old. So he
Yeah.
should be taught like a 5-year-old. So your child is now 3 years, but her language ability is at the age of 1 year. So it may be normal, it may be abnormal. But anyway, your child is having a language age of 1 year. So you talk to her like a 1-year-old child, so that the language will improve. That parents also will like.
Yeah. As you said, sir, that the early intervention program should start in the womb, should basically in the womb, na? And there are some literature views that I was watching that the early intervention program is from 3 to 6 years, especially. So we should consider it 0 to 6 years or 3 to 6 years.
Ideally, it is 0 to 6 years.
0 to 6 years. Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you so
The
much.
problem is, usually we don't separate mother and child up to the age of 3 years. That is why 3 to 6 year age, you talk about separation, individuation. Only at the age of 3 year, by the age of 3 year, the child is able to develop the mental capacity to remain separate from the mother. So that is why up to the age of 3 years, what I advise usually is if you send the child to a play school, let the mother go there, spend 1 hour in the play school with the child so that they can remain together, or mother can wait outside so that child can see the mother. So only by the age of 3 years, that is why our Anganwadis, play schools and all start the age of 3 years.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your nice views regarding this, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more doubts or any questions? Krishna sir, I think there is no more questions or doubts. Let's wind up, sir.
Kind. I have another class at 4 o'clock.
Yes, sir. Okay. So I would like to inform you that our director, that is the coordinator of this webinar series, in another talk, which is organized by our government of Kerala. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank on behalf of our director, Dr. Roshan Bijli. First of all, I would like to thank our resource person, Dr. Krishna Kumar, for this wonderful talk. Actually, it is one of the best talk which I have arranged in the whole series. And I would like to thanks once again for your presence and your valuable inspirational talk and your valuable information also, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And I would like to thank all the participants also for being there with us for the whole series for program, and thank one and all to these all the participants for attending this program. And finally, I would like to thank all the CRC members or the participant of CRC, my colleagues and other faculty members in CRC for being with us. Thank you all. Thank you. And I would like to inform you one more thing. The next program that is on 29th December and the topic is role of parents in identification of early childhood disabilities. The session will be handled by Dr. M.S. Rosina Patmam, MA PhD, the former director and professor, School of Behavioral Sciences, Mahatma Gandhi University, Kottayam. And I would like to invite you all to this program also. Thank you once again. Thank you all. Thank you all.